What do you do when you make a quilt and don't like it at all? That's what I did. Can I salvage it? I made this Sashiko sampler for another video. I thought I'd use the pinwheel blocks I made and combine them together and make a nice Sashiko baby quilt. I didn't like it. The challenge is, what can I do? Let's start from the beginning. I'm just going to cut some fabric here. This fabric needs to be 4 inches by 8 inches. If you've seen my other video in which I show you how to make half square triangles and pinwheels, you actually can just skip over this part. I've actually made, because I made that video, I've already made these pinwheels. And I was just going to say, just watch the other video, but, you may not want to click on enough videos. So I'm just going to quickly recap how to make this half square triangle for the people that haven't watched that video. Now I've got those cut. I'm going to make a line 4 inches down the center, but it makes each square 4 inches. And so what you want to do if you're making these is make multiples at once, not just make this many. And so you might cut your fabric multiples of 4. So this is 2 4s. You could cut 8 by 8 and then you would have 4 4s. You could cut 12 by 12 and so on. I probably wouldn't cut bigger than 12 by 12 if it's the first time that you've done this. Later on, when you get more confident and you've done it a few times, then that would be fine. And once you've drawn those squares, just draw a line diagonally across them. Because I've turned my ruler, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew on the outside of each of these lines 1/4 inch. So now when I sew along there, I'll just turn my fabric and keep sewing, turn again and come back, and I'll just sew it all in one long stream. So later on I'll be cutting down that center line. You do want to have your fabrics right side together. If you have a lighter fabric, you could actually draw on the lighter side. That would have probably been a more sensible way to do it, but my pen shows on this side, so it didn't really matter. I'm going to go take these to the machine and just sew those through now. I'm going to sew these on a different machine to what I usually use. This is my DX7. It is also a Juki, but I usually sew on my other Juki. But that one is underneath the table today because I've got my table cleared for doing some Sashiko. So this one will work perfectly well. I just usually use this for where I need to do some kind of a swing needle stitch like applique. So I'm just turning this over so that you can see the other side. So now I'm going to cut along this center line and along this line. This is going to make 4 half square triangles. These are cut apart now, and I'm going to take them and I'm going to press them open like that, and I'm going to press the seam to the dark side. So they'll be pressed like that when I've got them pressed. Then I'm going to take them and just trim them really quickly. So I'm trimming these triangles, and I'm using this little trimmer here, Block it's called. It's the one I like to use. The way you use this is this grooved line. You sit against the seam, and it snugs up there and stays pretty much in place. And then you line up these are going to be 3.5 finished size here at this point. So you line 3.5 on both sides, and then you just use your cutter to trim along and cut that little bit off. And you turn it around and line it up again and trim on the other side. There's nothing left to trim on that side, so just trim on there. And then you've got a nice perfect square. These seam points go out of the corners, so you know it's an equal half, and that makes everything line up in whatever you're sewing. So that's how you make the half square triangle. Jess has decided to come over here and join me, and he's trying to waft his, him laying there. He keeps trying to waft his tail over here into where I want to cut, so I've just kind of pushed him across a little bit out of the way. Every time I want to cut fabric, he decides that he needs to come and sit up here. Sometimes he'll just lay directly in the fabric I'm trying to cut, so. Take him and put him in the bedroom or somewhere out of the way, so I can't get any work done. Alright, so those 4 are cut. Okay, now we've got Daisy here as well. My goodness. Oh, lay down, Daisy. And the next thing you're going to do is make this into a pinwheel. And again, I do show this in the other video, so just skip over this if you already know this. So whichever way you're going to have them, I just have to twist this around and remember how to do it. I seem to be very good at orienting stuff. Nope. But you can see when it's right, you can see there a pinwheel, kind of like a windmill effect. And that will all sew together perfectly. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to sew down these 2 center seams. I'm going to fold it like that and then sew down there. And then when I've done that, I'll do the seam across the middle. I'm just lining those edges up carefully. You can pin these if you want to. I tend not to pin, not on these little short pieces. Top and bottom are done, and now I'm going to fold those and sew along that seam there. And I am going to put a pin in this one. I've kind of finger pressed these open in opposite directions because I want to do that snugging together of the seams. I particularly want these to really lay flat and to match very nicely because this is going to be the very center of this little block, and so you want it to look good. And I'm just going to put a pin in there just to hold it while I sew it so it doesn't move in the sewing process. And then again, I'm just going to sew 1/4 of an inch seam down there. Your needle should cross exactly over your point. And if you've cut everything accurately, it should just do that automatically. We'll see in a minute when I open this up how accurate I actually was. The true test. Let's see, maybe I should look first. No, that's fine. So now I'm going to clip these seams here. So the seam that you're clipping it's this seam here, the one where you sewed the 2 halves together. And at the very bottom you can see there's just a couple of stitches there. And you don't usually do this, but on this project you need to just cut those 2 stitches. And you're cutting on the side that's going to be hidden. You're not cutting on the side that's going to show. And you're doing quite small stitches in quilting, so this probably is not going to unravel in any way. And you do this to make the centre lay flat because you've got lots of joining seams all coming together here. And, you know, in sewing, that's a problem. You want to flatten that out as much as possible. So you can see one seam wants to go that way, when the other wants to go the other way. And so you just help that along and open those out. And what happens is those 4 points open out and all these around here are going to lay flat for you. So I'm just going to take that and put it on the under the iron and make that flat seam. That's all pressed. Got a good centre there, and on the back it all lays nice and flat. All the seams go in the same direction, and obviously there's always going to be some bulk there, but that's a whole lot better than trying to press it all the same way. So you would make all your pinwheels like that, and you need to make 18 pinwheels. sewn together, the finished measurement at the moment is 6.5 inches. And so the way that we're going to lay them out is we're going to lay them like that, and then we're going to put another colour in between here. So for this section, we just need a 6.5 inch square. Now you could make this all with pinwheels if you wanted. You could make any pattern you want to on here. I'm just doing a plain blue. I wanted something to contrast with the colours that I've already got, but stay in the blue family. So it will sit like that. Each of these will make a block. So I'm going to sew these together now. And the way to sew it again is to fold them together, right sides together, sew down that seam, and then when they're done, we'll do the horizontal seam. I'm just going to take this back to the sewing machine. At the moment, I'm just chain sewing all these pieces together. So if I just sew a plain blue with one of my pinwheel squares, I can sew them all, and then later on I'll press them, and then I'll sew the other two halves together. This makes it just a really quick way of doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and then we'll do the second part, the sewing the two halves. So I did do a 1/4 inch seam on all of these, and also I was careful to match the edges as I sewed them together. I'm just going to clip them apart, and then I'm going to press them all open. So I have all my pieces here. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to put always a light square at the top with a blue square on the bottom. I'm going to fold them together and sew down that side. Now I am just going to pin this particular part together here in the middle, and because I've pressed both to the dark side and the seams are all in the same direction, this seam and this seam will nest. So when it's all finished, it'll line up nicely. One thing is though, you shouldn't sew over your pins. I'm just going to continue sewing those, and I have one here ready, so I can just show you what the block looks like when it's sewn together and finished. So I'll go ahead and finish these, press them, and then I'll put them up on the design wall, and you can see what it's going to look like finished. These are the pieces laid upon the design wall with the original Sashiko sampler in the centre. This was what I had planned for this quilt. So this is the part that I wanted to show you. We've got these 3 pieces sewn together in the centre and the 3 pieces sewn together for the top row. So you're just going to turn those right sides together. So that's what I'm going to go do next. Go ahead and sew that and pin that and sew that all together. Hold it right sides to right side. Going to match up these corners and put some pins in. Pins, I'm just going to sew this long seam together. No, I just don't like it. I'm going to have to rethink this. I'm going to unpick that centre block and take it out altogether, and then I'll decide what to do. This is what I decided, another pinwheel in the centre. I just have to sew this last one together and put it in place. So this wasn't hard. The centre blocks are the same size, so I just had to unpick one and put the other one in. So I've just cut some borders. At the moment, my quilt down the sides is 37 inches. So I've cut a piece, or I've cut two pieces that are 37 inches by 3 inches. And I'm just going to put one on each side, pin them evenly, and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. The side border is on there, and you'd repeat that the other side the same. Once that's on, measure across the quilt. You want to measure across the centre, not along the edges, to get the finished size for the top and bottom border. When you've done that, go ahead and cut it and sew it on in just the same way. I don't need to show you that on camera because it's just the same again as you did the first side. My width measurement was 42 inches, so I cut two strips 3 inches by 42 inches and sewed them along the top and the bottom. I will include the measurements of how much fabric and everything you need for this. I've just got to go ahead and quilt it now and finish it off. I think I salvaged it. What do you think? But if you hold on, I have some more ideas of something else that I want to do. The binding is on now, and I've done some machine quilting. I found some cute fabric for the back, and I decided to add these cute bears on here. So these are a cross between Sashiko and quilting because it's acting like quilting, but it is a Sashiko stitch. So I couldn't get all these done to finish this for now. I'm just going to keep working on these for the moment. So this project didn't go at all as planned, as I think you can tell. But, you know, sometimes you change your mind and you just have to adapt, see if you can make it into something better. And I actually really like this result. I've been wanting to do some kind of Sashiko type quilting on things. Ideally, you would never do this once the binding and everything is on, but as I say, things didn't go as planned. I changed my mind about what I was doing, and I'm able to get away with this because I already did do this machine quilting on here. So the sampler we'll save for another project. In the meantime, I'll continue working on this and put more bears on here. I actually had quite fun. I hope you enjoyed this video and didn't get too confused with the changes in the middle there. If you like this, please subscribe and I'll have some more videos. And hopefully things will go a little bit more smoothly on the next ones. Thanks for watching.